Let's get to a new poll from the Washington Post and ABC and Ipsos that shows Trump's approval rating overall and ratings on issues at, I believe, what is record lows of his, at least in his second term. You've got a 37% overall approval rating, 62% disapproval rating. Cost of living, 23%, 76% disapproved, 72% disapproved of of inflation, and 66% disapprove of Iran, 59% disapprove of his handling of immigration. We've talked about some of these bad numbers before that are now getting worse, and how the levels that they've reached means it's sort of crossed the threshold arena of Republican support. What's your takeaway from this worsening situation for the president?
I'm unsurprised. It's exactly the direction that many of us have told him it would be in, which is really high numbers on disapproving on cost of living and inflation. Those are the places in which he was elected to do better. That's it. It's simple math.
Very simple.
I think the administration misses the mark when they don't understand that the messaging can be done well in an all-of-the-above fashion.
So you think this is a messaging problem and not a policy problem?
Oh, without a doubt. Because what voters wanted was a solutions talk, right? There are things going on behind the scenes. I mean, inevitably, all these people weren't brought onto the administration to do nothing, right? But they have been muffled because the president is the speakerphone. He's the one who always controls the messaging. And I say to that, and I say this to anybody I've ever worked with, whether they're running for Congress or another office, I say, we need to do an all-of-the-above approach. We can walk and chew gum at the same time. Tell me about the economy while telling me your plans for handling geopolitical tension. You can do that. But they continue to bifurcate it all. And we're seeing, again, the frustration exhibited in the numbers with largely independents. And they know they're worried. They know it's bad.
It's, as my husband likes to say about issues, it's not complicated, but it is complex. And that seems to be the issue. Shout out to the husband. I heard you make a noise when. So you go ahead.
You thought you was explicitly a messaging issue, and all I keep hearing in my head is Janet Jackson. What have you done for me lately? And what Donald Trump and Republicans have done for the public lately is raise their cost of energy, raise their gas prices, cut their health care tax subsidies, do nothing about the cost of housing that they're facing, do nothing to help them. Then also add in the cost of basic goods that they need, shoes, clothes, food, inflation, tariffs, things that Donald Trump did, which congressional Republicans did nothing to rein him in on, is what they have.
Not to mention starting a war that exacerbates all those things.
Exactly. So this is their actions. This is their policies. There's no way for them to outmessage this, because the reality is people know who controls Washington. Republicans have the House, the Senate, the White House. They are in control. Voters see that, and thus the disapproval numbers we're witnessing.
Well, let's hear from Gen Z voters what they have to say about all of this. Let's hear from some real people, not just us around the table, about how they feel about things.
For the first time in American history, the younger generations are not set up to have a better life than their parents did. And I think that that's an unfair and that's a scary thing.
What would you all say are the two most important topics right now?
I would say the economy and the disappearing middle class.
I would say affordability and the job market.
Protecting democracy and campaign finance.
The economy and how united we are as a society.
Affordability, as well as protecting our democracy.
Income inequality and foreign policy.
Bright light.
So that was our colleague Maya Eglin, who did that roundtable with Gen Z voters. But Rina, I mean, this is why, as you said a moment ago, that they're worried. Like folks within the administration, the Republican Party are worried.
Well, let me give you an example from my own life. I was listed in the tariffs case that was successful at the Supreme Court on the amicus brief. I must add, the real work was done by Michelle, Norm Eisen, all those great people at Defending Democracy Together. I lent my name with a dozen other Republicans to say, we think these tariffs, he doesn't have the right to do that, right? Would they do right after we won that case? They just came back and said, we'll do it under some other obscure authority. This is where they're choosing to spend their time, and it's wrong because the tariffs are directly related to the cost of living. I'm a young mother. I've got 3 tiny children. I got to keep alive and also like make their lives run too, in addition to mine. So price of living is very difficult when we go out to get our clothes and just daily goods. That is directly related to this tariff war. I gave the president, before I was against tariffs, his tariff piece, I was for it. So I'm actually unusual in that way, because I said maybe this is going to do better negotiation, better trade deals for the U.S. We have now seen that did not materialize. This is the problem with the administration, is that they cannot talk about solutions because the president is, again, controlling everything. This is a really, really bad precedent to set for the executive branch. You need other people to get in there and say, the American people are thirsty for ideas. Let's give them some ideas. All those Gen Z folks right there, they wanted to know that they could be part of the middle class, afford a house at some point.
Oh, which I think they recognize they likely will not be able to, and thus they're speaking about affordability. They're also probably looking for jobs. People are coming out of college in this moment where we know that there's a decline in economic numbers and employment opportunities right now. And so when Donald Trump takes actions to make those things worse, when Republicans stand by and do nothing to pull back on that, they have no argument to make explicitly to those voters.
And when they don't take off-ramps, because the Supreme Court gave them an off-ramp. There have been off-ramps on the things that are unpopular. Yeah. The Supreme Court, Congress, just like time passing, they have given Donald Trump in this administration off-ramps. And every single time he seems to refuse to take it. And what I'm struck by is during the first term, bad polls, bad headlines used to kind of move Donald Trump. It used to, you would see those things and it wouldn't be huge changes. They just stopped talking about certain things.
But he would dance to them.
And
You're making a good point.
Right. And that is not the case anymore. So when you have a leader of a party, the Republican, your party, who refuses to take the off-ramps, who is not moved by bad polls, is not moved by hearing from the American people that things aren't working, you aren't doing the things you promised to do for me. What does that do for everybody else? Because, unlike the Democratic Party, who loves a fight, the Republican Party is just like, whatever Donald Trump says, we'll go slowly but surely.
It sets the stage for generational losses, and that makes me upset. Not because I'm some party line holder, right? I mean, Speaker Johnson every day of the week is like, hold the line, we can do this, we are numbers, everybody just trust us. No, we can't trust you anymore. I am only a Republican because I care about limited government. And we have a duopoly.
So much for that.
Exactly, so much for that. You're showing me you don't care about my values or the values of millions of other voters across the country. And also, here's the bigger thing. This president has conceded, if you've listened to him, as I know you all have, that he's fine with losing the trifecta. What? We don't have a multi-party system in this country. We have a duopoly that I've been trying to break forever. I've had to choose a side being in this town almost 2 decades. But the vast majority of Americans are losing hope, and they're losing it so quickly that they are not going to politically participate this fall. That's my biggest fear as a political professional. Yeah.
Well, and James Tallarico has a sharp take on this disillusionment that we're talking about right now. Eugene had a little exclusive yesterday about the speech that he gave to HBCU graduates in Texas, and he said that your disillusionment is a superpower. Actually, let's play that talk quickly if we have time.
Disillusionment has a bad reputation, but being disillusioned means being freed from illusions, to see reality, to know the truth. As painful as it may be, your disillusionment is a superpower. You can see the world as it is and dream of the way it ought to be.
Juanita, are you confident that young voters are channeling their disillusionment toward the ballot box in November?
I mean, some of them. And let's be real. Let's look at the track record of young voters who have an impact explicitly in midterms. I'm thinking back to 2022 when it was young voters who prevented what was considered to be predicted to be a red wave, and it was nothing. It was a trickle, a little bit of scattered wins there for Republicans, but it completely rejected historical norms around Democrats or the party in control in a midterm cycle. And so I think young people are absolutely primed to do that because their lives and their well-beings and their futures are at stake.
I think the interesting thing about Tallarico is he has to figure out a way to bring black voters back into the fold after that primary. And there is a little bit of the party needing to pay attention how the folks on the ground are doing it instead of doing the on high thing. Because like he went to the oldest HBCU in Texas, west of the Mississippi, very small graduating class. And the speech wasn't really about politics, but it was about all the things that move our politics. And I think more of the Democrats should do that because it channels what you're talking about, this anger and frustration people have, and it points it somewhere. Because they can be angry, but you got to point them to somewhere.
I think in addition to the anger, though, you also need to provide them with vision and solutions
right.
and what you will deliver for them because this isn't just about feel good.
And I'm going to point this conversation to an end. Juanita Tolliver, Rina Shah, I have to do that because we have to go. Thank you both very much.